Hi, everybody that's here already. I'm going to just get everything set up and we'll let people join and plan to get started right around 12. I used to do this so often before I opened Hack. It's been a while, so bear with me. So Sage, you can hear me? Hey, you're muted. I'm going to unmute you. Unmute. All right. One thing I learned, funny story for anyone joined in, the last thing like this that I did was for Peace Power Parenting. And I had shared it on Twitter, and my husband has got a pretty public job. And so people trolled my Peace Power Parenting webinar. And the whole point of the Peace Power Parenting webinar was, the first one anyway, was how to, stay calm even when things get really messy. And so I got to demonstrate that I could indeed stay calm in the mess of the moment as people were literally unmuting themselves and saying really not nice things. So I've learned now, you guys can't unmute yourself. So one of the things that we're gonna have to figure out today, when you have questions, we're gonna have you raise your hand. And there's a way to do that, but this is new to me. So while we're getting set up here, we're gonna learn how to do this. So I don't think that you can unmute yourself. If that ends up not being the case, we'll know because someone will troll us potentially. But I want to figure out where the raise hand option is. So I think it's in the chat. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to leave the chat open. So as you have any questions, you guys can just enter it in the chat, and I can unmute you and let you guys talk. Does that sound good? Awesome. I'll assume that's a yes. Cool. My dad is here, everybody. He's iPad 10. So that's my dad. He's in Florida and I miss him. I wish my dad were with me right now, but he's with me right now. So hi, Dad. Hey, Eric. So Eric, you're unmuted. So I don't know how you did that. No offense, you're not supposed to be unmuted. I don't know. There's gonna be a lot of fun learning that happens today, as is all this stuff. All this stuff is so new. And yeah, cool. So it's 12, so we're gonna get started. Sage, thank you for joining. I gotta change this so you don't keep moving. I'm gonna put on speaker view. Although then I gotta look at myself when I talk. That's not what I want. So for those of you who don't know Sage, Sage is someone who came into HACKD about a year and a couple months ago as a client, someone who used a bunch of the stuff that we have at HACKD to aid in his own recovery from a bunch of kind of chronic stuff that he was dealing with, really life-threatening and pretty intense stuff. And it was the first time that I was exposed to the idea that the equipment we have at HACKD could be used as part of real deeper healing. And it's just not something that I had experience with, and it's not something that I had really thought about. And so it opened up a whole other world of potential beauty, because opening up HACKD was all about being of service, and finding ways that I could be of service is kind of what it's all about. So Sage, when he came into HACKD, really opened up a whole other world about the equipment being of service, and then also breath work. And I had gone to yoga school years and years ago in 2013, so I started using breath work pretty regularly in 2013, but it kind of had a back seat to a lot of the other stuff that I was doing around physical fitness and mental fitness. And so when Sage first started coming to HACKD and we started talking about breath work, it kind of had a bunch of my worlds collide. And so it's pretty cool. And Sage and I became pretty good friends, and anyone who's part of the HACKD community knows that Sage has been a big part of the HACKD story over the last year. His breathwork sessions have personally been transformative. His friendship has been transformative. And I know that he's had sessions with many of people in the HACKD community that have been transformative for the HACKD community. And he's expanded, he's creating something called Breath Church that started in Brooklyn, is going online. Like everything is going online now. And yeah, so it was kind of an easy first community for me to ask Sage to join me today, because there are a bunch of specific things around breath work. Obviously, Sage and I talk all the time, but there was one particular conversation we had where he was trying to describe a specific type of breath to help the health of my lungs. And I was like, okay, you gotta show me that on video. Because I was like, he's like, what, you didn't get that? I'm like, no. So Sage, if you want to kind of intro any way that you want, but then that's going to be my first question. I want to dive into that particular type of breath that you were trying to teach me that I totally couldn't understand without video.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Pam. Welcome, everybody. It's really, 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 really cool to be here. And even under these circumstances, I just have a lot of joy. It's really nice to see some faces. Hi, Dad. iPad 10. Breath work. Wow. Right now was already having a really hot minute, and now it's really even more important, and everybody's rushing online, and a lot of people don't even know what it is, and people are talking about it. So I think I just want to start a little bit by saying, what is breath work, and introducing that. Calibrating your breath, or planning specific ways to breathe to reverse engineer brain and body states, is essentially what breath work is. So I'm in state A: anxiety, fear, panic, worry, anger, and I want to be in state B: relaxation, joy, calm, focus, love. Yeah. And how do I get from state A to state B? What's the shortest, fastest route? And for me, it was always chronic pain. In a time of, concern about health, I technically, if I want to believe the diagnoses, have chronic everything. And so how do I get from chronic to not chronic was my journey. And breath has proven again and again and again to be the fastest, most immediate, most fulfilling way to get there. Not to say that one size fits all and breath is the only thing you need, but in a time where we are having our access to outside resources limited, we have all the ambient room air that we want in the room that we're in right now. So being able to leverage something that's literally right under your nose to take us from state A to state B is the essence of breathwork. Now, obviously, it starts very, very simply, and then it gets to what I was telling you. I don't want to scare everybody off, but what I was trying to tell you is actually very, very complicated. It's a very complex style of breath, but I mean, let's just try it. Let's just jump all the way in. So we've talked about 12 o'clock is 100% full. So fill up your lungs, just all the way, wherever you're at. Okay, now hold it. Just hold it there. Now your lungs are like balloons, right? You feel that? Let it out. Okay, so that's 12 o'clock. When you're all the way full and you can't feel anymore. Right.
I got a head rush.
That's the first thing that happens. Then, now take the air and squeeze it all the way out. Everybody, all the way out. When you think you've got more air, when you're out, there's always more. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Hold at the bottom. Okay, now hold it there. Pretend to breathe in. Do you feel that? That sort of compression. What we're doing is we're exercising the bronchial muscles.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Pulses of that, where all the way in, all the way out, and when you're all the way, I mean, no air. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And then.
Did I ever tell you that this was the exact way that I found? So I had hiccups for like 2 weeks straight when I was in my 20s. My dad probably remembers this.
Yeah, you did.
Everybody who knew me knew that I was freaking the fuck out. I'm gonna curse on these. I was freaking the fuck out because I had hiccups for like 2 weeks and I could not get them to go away. And I researched every possible hiccup remedy and like talked to everybody I knew. And the one that finally worked was this. It was this. Huh. It was a series of breathing all the way out and holding it, and then a little more out, then all the way in, hold it, all the way in, all the way in. And that was how I finally got my hiccups to go away.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's regulating the diaphragm is what you did. You found a way to regulate the diaphragm. But it also gets the inner lung.
Yeah.
And the inner lung is the toughest place to get to. So there's the inner lung, the outer lung. There's like 20 22, I don't want to get this wrong, 22 or 23 regions in the lung. That's crazy. There's all of these different levels and sub-levels and spaces from when we breathe in to when we breathe out. And so when you push all the air out, you squeeze it, your lungs are like sponges, so they can fill and they're like balloons. Anyone who's ever been in a pool, right? You know, if you want to stay afloat, that's how you stay drown proof. You take a deep breath, hold it. It's very difficult to drown because you have that much air. It's a buoyancy thing. So it's a way that they teach people, if you're lost at sea, you can stay afloat and stay alive much longer by using the natural buoyancy of your lungs. Well, we can use that principle. Keep in mind, I developed all of this stuff when I was very much in circumstances like these, alone in my house for 3 years with very little contact with the outside world. And I was in chronic pain. I was opioid dependent, not addicted. There's a difference. I had to take them every day. And then I detoxed myself off all those opioids and then just had massive chronic pain because there was 3 millimeters of travel between C5, C6. So my neck bones were squeezing my spinal column. And I wasn't on opioids, and I was doing hot yoga and CrossFit, and I had a lot of pain, and I couldn't do anything else. I was functionally useless, but I could lay around and breathe. So I learned about how to use the buoyancy of the lungs. You can use the lungs to stretch. If you're laying in bed and you're sick and you can't exercise, you can break a sweat with breath work. You can use this buoyancy to do stretches. So if you fill your lungs and then stretch and practice doing the same stretches with a very full lung versus a very empty lung. When you have full lungs, you can actually stretch muscles because there's more volume in the lung. And so the lung, as you begin to bend and stretch over, these are the muscles. Imagine this is the lung under here. As you bend and stretch, if the lung is full, it's going to allow you to get a better stretch. So I just spent a lot of time rolling around on balls and laying on yoga blocks and foam rollers, and I had nothing else to do. And it was that or go back on opioids and die. And so I just got really, really, really facile with playing with my breath. So now jump to here we are today. Right. We had a lot of time on our hands. It looks like, you know, we're going to be indoors for.
We have a lot of time on our hands, and there's like specific, like, okay, obviously we're all really caring right now about keeping our immune system as strong as possible, keeping our mental health as strong as possible. You can't disconnect those because we know that stress and cortisol directly impact our immune system. And so using our breath to lower our stress levels is directly related to our capacity to have an improved immune system. So how would you say, in terms of breathing to lower cortisol, which will then improve the immune system, what would you be like, what was your number one practice right now for that?
So I actually have a number one and a number one.
Tell us
I have two number ones.
We won't limit you, Sage. Someone raised their hand. I'm so sorry. I just realized. So now, how did they do that? And what does that mean? This is going to be fun. Okay.
I don't even know how people raise their hand.
I don't.
You gotta share this with me. I have no idea.
I know this is good because we're all transitioning to this online world, and these systems are new to us. And so I don't know. My dad's one. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Lower hand. I lowered your hand, Dad. But so maybe at some point, Dad can explain to me what he figured out. But anyway, so you're number 1 and 2 and 3 and 5, so, whatever reason.
Breathing for immune
system, lower cortisol.
Support, yeah, and lowering cortisol. First thing you can do is extend the exhale twice as long as the inhale. It's the first thing. It's the easiest thing. If you know Ujjayi or yoga breath, you're way ahead of the game. If you don't, I invite you to Google it and find as many places online where you can begin to learn to breathe like the yogis. It's also called resistance breath. It gives a little bit of back pressure in the system, and it just sort of sounds like, I don't know if anyone can hear that, but it's like the ocean waves. It's the ocean
the way
waves.
that when I was in yoga school and they taught a test, it was like you're fogging up a mirror, like.
That's great.
Like fogging up a mirror out, and then what would it feel like if you were fogging up a mirror in?
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, I love that. I've never heard that.
I had great yoga teachers.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Because I've been trying to figure out how to teach people Ujjayi. It's the number 1 most important breath that I can emphasize. And so if you try that, just, that's brilliant. Do that, fogging the breath, fogging the mirror through the nose. But if you can create a little bit of back pressure, so you say inhale for 2, let's try that now. Exhale for 4. Inhale for 2. Exhale for 4. Okay, just that, a few times a day, is really, really, really powerful at putting us in an inhibitory state of sympathetic. It's not actively parasympathetic. There's a lot of misinformation. I want to address a couple of those things out there right now around breath work. Exhale is not parasympathetic, but an extended exhale is inhibitory to sympathetic. So it encourages. And what I mean by sympathetic and parasympathetic, there's 2 branches of the autonomic nervous system for people who don't know. Rest and digest is parasympathetic. Fight or flight or freeze is sympathetic. And in times like these, if you're anything like me with chronic whatever, my system will simply just go into sympathetic dominance or overdrive, icy hands and feet, spindly veins, and I'm not technically consciously stressed, but my system is registering, it's time to go, rock and roll. So I have to do these breathing techniques and bring myself back down on a regular basis throughout the day. So this is something I've engaged in regularly, extending the exhale twice as long as the inhale. Now, you can also do that with a box breath. What is box breath? Well, if a normal breath is an inhale, exhale, pause, that's a triangle, right? What we're doing is a box. So inhale for 2, hold for 2, exhale for 4, hold for 2.
Very lopsided box.
It's like a trapezoid.
That box is not going to fit normal things in it.
Thanks, Pam. That's a trapezoid breath.
Well, I was going to say that, but then no, it's.
But it's not a trapezoid even.
It's not a trapezoid.
I don't know.
It's lumpy.
Misshapen, lumpy breath.
It's important because that's like when I was in yoga school, we learned about the cycle of the breath, which you and I talk about all the time. The exhale is the relax, right? The release and let go. That's why we sigh naturally. And so the exhale is the part of the cycle where we're releasing. And so whenever we need or want to relax, by elongating that part of the cycle, that part of the box, we're going to be putting that emphasis on relaxation, which is for the layman. That's all we got to remember is that sigh. Just keep that attention over and over again on that exhale. Have it be a little bit longer, kind of hang out there. Bring your attention there and hang out there, and you'll feel your whole system relax. And sometimes it takes a while. When I first started practicing this, and I practiced it a lot kind of in relationships because that's a great training ground. We didn't have anything really intense and crazy happening in the world, but if you're in any kind of intimate relationship, that's always going to be what pushes your buttons. So I got to practice breath work in that environment. And I remember sometimes it would take me 12 breaths of just focusing on the exhale. And then in my case, I learned that the pause between the exhale and the inhale is where we find compassion. And obviously in relationships, I'm trying to be compassionate, I'm trying to not be judgmental. And so I kept hanging out in that pause. And when I say hanging out, I was just kind of bringing my attention there and staying there as I continue to breathe. Remember, it took like 12, 15 breaths before I felt myself kind of relax and soften and be more compassionate to my significant other. But yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about how you found compassion in the pause at the bottom? That's the first time I've
Well, that's one of the things that I learned from my yoga teacher, that in terms of the cycle of the breath, the inhale was the kind of get ready, have confidence, get ready to take that brave, bold action. Get ready. If we hang out in the pause between the inhale and the exhale, we actually are able to access higher levels of our mental faculties, which could make us more judgmental, which can actually intensify anger and judgment. And so we have to make sure that we're not hanging out in the pause between the inhale and the exhale, that we're actually exhaling and hanging out. And it's the pause between the exhale and the inhale where we find compassion. And the story that I remember my yoga teacher teaching was like, if you imagine that you went outside, which let's get outside, people, and heaven forbid you saw like a dog get hit by a car, and you run to the dog and you're like, are you okay? Or if you see someone fall, are you okay? And then you wait, you pause, waiting to see if they're okay. And it's that compassionate pause, that exhale, like you're caring and you're waiting to connect and receive. And it's that openness that's in that pause between the exhale and the inhale. And that's where we cultivate the compassion. There's this openness to the collective between the exhale and the inhale.
That's really fascinating. And it goes to prove a point that it actually matters more what you think about while you're breathing than it does any specific style. Because I've also been taught the pauses when you're trying to have a release, it depends on what your intention is and what you're thinking about. And the pauses were always taught as a very different thing. That's where control lives, control at the top and the bottom. And so we want to eliminate those in a more holotropic. Now that's, again, a very different style of breath. We're trying to have a dramatic breakthrough. And what I want to highlight too is that people are going to hear a lot of different stuff about breath. They're going to hear this thing, and then they're going to hear that thing, and it's going to be the same breath, and it's going to seem entirely contradictory. But I think what you're saying is then how I'm bringing my thought and my intention.
Yeah, intention
through my breath.
Intention and attention.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Magic.
Yeah, it's a beautiful principle. And you also mentioned the sigh, and that segues into my second number one, because these are both equally effective. And I'm finding sometimes that the sigh of relief is not cutting it for me right now.
Yeah, you need
I have to go to a 30-second or a 1-minute ujjayi exhale where I just get the air in, and I will ride that breath down for as long as I have oxygen hunger tolerance. I get my CO2 tolerance up, and I'll work on just a minute-long exhale. And that's my thing lately, because my system needs to be brought back down. It's not snapping loose. So I just sort of outed my technique that I'm about to give you. And I would have said 2 weeks ago that this was bulletproof. It worked for me every time. But in this time of unique stress and having all of the stuff I had going on already in my brain and body, I'm discovering that some of the techniques under an increased level of fire or field testing may need some tweaking. So this second method is my preferred method, was my preferred method for the last 1.5 years, and it's snapping the exhale loose. It's a sigh of relief you talked about. It's a breath we breathe about every 12 minutes anyway, and we breathe it every single time something happens that's dangerous or nearly happens and doesn't. We just go, and it's just that simple. And in that sigh, it's not really snapping the exhale, it's not forcing. So we're not, and we're not riding it down. I liken it to a box of rocks. So you pick the box of rocks up, and you just drop it.
Yeah, it's like something happens. Like there's another force at work that actually takes it from us. That we don't. That's the thing about it, like energetically, that it's like we don't have to actually do anything. We're allowing something to happen. We're letting go. We're releasing. We're allowing whatever force is at work to actually do the thing that it's going to do. I like to talk about that co-creative kind of force that we all are. That like there's something else at work here, and that's kind of the way that I experience that exhale, that release, the box of rocks or the bow breath. Like thinking about pulling back the bow and then letting it go. Like there's a force at work that's taking it, that's breathing us as much as we're the one breathing in, and then there's something breathing us out if we let it.
So that's the funny thing about the breath, is it does check us in with something very ethereal, very spiritual, and very bigger and beyond us very quickly. Yeah, I mean, it gets woo-woo quick, right? I mean, it does. And I love the science, and I sit with the science. I have been using this time to catch up on some stuff with Dr. Peter Litchfield, who we've talked to, some really brilliant stuff. And yet, beyond the science, very quickly, we run out of what we can actually quantify or measure. And so we have to get into physics or metaphysics. Quantum physics is my favorite. Quantum field theory seems to be the most applicable, although I'm reading some stuff now by a guy named Walter Russell, who was a contemporary of Tesla. He wrote a book, and Tesla was like, put this away for 1,000 years. They're going to kill you. Humanity's not ready for this. You need to lock this book up. And it's all about that wave motion, spiral. Everything's a spiral. So the inhale and the exhale going in different directions, the energy shift, what we know about light being a wave and a particle, that dual nature of light in quantum physics, the breath somehow taps into that aspect of science very quickly, like the weird theoretical woo. And the sigh of relief is, I just want to finish and wrap this up, because anyone who wants a functional breath on how to modulate the immune system to relax, to bring down cortisol, you can also Google Wim Hof. Wim Hof is a great way. There's some real science behind the immunoboosting benefits of that particular, his style and method of breathing. But this sigh of relief, you brought up the just letting it happen. If we think about letting what came up during the inhale go on the exhale. So I have a thought. I don't like my thought. I have a physiological response. I want to get rid of it. I inhale that thought to the surface, and that same breath could do a million other things, but in that moment, I need it to be a cleansing, purging breath. And so in my mind, I'm like, here's the thing I'm trying to get out. There's my chance to get it out. So those two, the long exhale, sigh of relief for cortisol modulation, relaxing from anxiety, and boosting immunity. Yeah. As for your waveform thing, letting things happen is where breath becomes a metaphor for that. Can you tell me a little more, or just share? Because we've talked about this in the past, I think, but you're relaxing into and letting go, like your whole philosophy of allowing and making space for things to simply happen. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, there are a couple of things that came up, but one of them was for anyone who's a parent or is helping parents through this, all of this is really, kids get this super, super fast. And like when you were saying, bring a thought up, like there was a technique that I taught my son where on the inhale, you imagine like a cloud kind of coming. And then on the exhale, it's like the cloud just goes poof, and it could be a word, it can be a feeling. And so that's one of the things I was thinking about. But in terms of, letting things happen, I mean, there's definitely a force, right? That is happening, that we're all forces of nature, and we're not alone in this. We're part of a collective. And there's obviously a huge collective thing happening right now where everybody is caught up in this very similar experience. It's pretty interesting because in some ways we're also isolated, but in other ways we're all kind of experiencing different versions of the same thing. Like we're all isolated. We're all having to, look at whatever our livelihood was. I don't know anyone whose livelihood hasn't been disrupted by this in some way, shape, or form. We're isolated from our loved ones. We're having to kind of just, really shift things very majorly. But I guess for me, when we're doing breath work, and whether we're doing this kind of breath over and over again, which some of you have done on this call, when we do over and over again, this kind of bow breath, it brings stuff up. And then there is a force where energy just knows to move. Like the energy that's been stuck in us, that our breath can help bring up and help show us, oh, I do have something stuck there. There is an old fear, or there's old anger, or a knotted mess of fear, sadness, and anger, all in one thing. And it just knows to move. It's weird how this force of movement, like the force of energy moving, I mean, that's a thing. That's a thing separate from our agency. And it just happens, like just like gravity happens. There's forces that are happening outside of what we're in charge of, right? It just is. And it doesn't really matter what you think that is. It's undeniable. There are forces at work. And we understand the Newtonian forces like gravity a lot better than we understand the subtler ones. But part of what I wanted to say was, when we were talking about science, I've always looked at all this like kind of spiritual science or inner science experiments, because even though it might not be kind of replicable and measurable, we can certainly report on our own experience of it. And so if you just do your own testing, like anyone that's listening to this, if you just start testing this for yourself, because when I first learned about the cycle of the breath, I remember sitting like it was yesterday in yoga school and being taught this stuff and being so skeptical. One, because I am skeptical, but two, I'm like, how am I think I was like 32 at the time. I'm like, how am I in my 30s? And I've never learned this before. It's completely confounding that something so simple and powerful was never taught to me. And I was super, super skeptical. And then I started testing it out. And once I started testing it out, it's like, holy fucking shit. Like, oh my freaking God, like how is this so simple and powerful? And I can test it out for myself, and it's undeniable. And if we're skeptical and we create negative thoughts, we can change our experience, which is one of the tricky things about all this. When you do this inner science, I know plenty of people, my children included, when they were little, I tried to start teaching this from the time they were little. And my daughter was very like, that doesn't work for me, Mom. So we can make it not work. Like if our brain is stuck in a negative polarity, we can change the results of this stuff, because that's when we're on the quantum, it's subtle. And so, at the end of the day, people just have to try it for themselves and see what works for themselves, and call themselves out where they may be resisting, where they may be blocking, where they may be stuck in a fixed mindset, believing something negative. And that's a kind of victim mode mentality. And so the best way that I know to start to open that up a little bit is like, well, what would it be like if maybe I was wrong? If what I believed to be true actually wasn't the whole truth? And what would that feel like? And if people aren't able to even do that, then they're stuck in the fight or flight, and they're locked and loaded, and then they're going to be there until they're not, right? But for those of us that are open at all, to be open, like, well, what if there's a chance that is this simple, that when I'm stressed, if I lengthen the exhale, that something will happen. By letting go, something will happen.
That's my favorite saying, something will happen. Yeah. And that's a great way of invoking something and something happening. And the breath really makes the space for that. All the jammed up energy, all the stuck stuff, and you just have to get your breath moving. How do we want, when we want to not cry, how do we shut off our emotions? The first thing we do, you'll see people,
Hold their breath.
Yeah, and they push it all down. And I do these seminars and I see people 3 breaths in start crying. Our systems are so packed in with all of this stuff, everything on
That's me, by
everyday
the way.
basis.
He wasn't, he was trying to not call me out, but that's me. I'm the one who's 3 breaths in is already crying.
we don't get any relief in our normal daily lives, so we don't have any money in the bank when something like this happens. There's just no money in the bank. Spiritually, we're bankrupt because we're running spiritually paycheck to paycheck on a daily basis.
And lately, I've been using the word energetic instead of spiritual. Like anyone who read my book knows that I was all about spiritual strength, mind, body, spirit. But lately, I've also been using the word energetic. Because if we think about it like that, like our subtle energy, like our access to subtle energy, when you're talking about this currency in the bank,
Sure.
like that's what we're talking about, this energy to rise up, to be positively buoyant. Another great yoga teacher I had used to talk about this concept of positive buoyancy, where you can kind of be on top of the wave of the challenges. And anyone ever watched Finding Nemo, there's this great scene where they're bouncing on top of the jellyfish. And you may not be Finding Nemo people, but that is the best analogy that I have to, like, stay on top of the jellyfish. If you stay on top of the jellyfish, you won't hit the stingers. But there's this positive buoyancy that as you get hit with another wave, you kind of just keep bouncing back up to the top, bouncing back up to the top, instead of getting ground down into the sand with the, everything not being able to breathe. And all that is that, well, how do we have the energy to be positively buoyant? The breath.
I'm just still noodling on spirituality versus energetic. I think energetics is a part. Yeah, no, I know. I'm actually noodling on that. I think the energetic aspect goes to explain parts of spirituality that people can't access when they need to wrap their head around something. So I was just wondering, I'm like, how far do I agree with that?
In spirituality, we talk a lot about like source, like, instead of saying the word God, we can say source.
Energy,
right? Into source energy, or again, quantum field. To
Remove
me, it all connects.
Removing blockers so people don't get caught up on terminology.
Yeah. And I think you and I have gone down the rabbit hole plenty of times where, we talk about feeling held, that, if we feel held, like one of the things I talk about a lot is feeling held, feeling supported, held and supported is kind of the same concept, feeling empowered, capable, and then feeling inspired, which is kind of energized to do whatever. But there's at least many, many times when I've been breathing and I'm kind of praying to feel held, feeling supported, and then realizing we're not even separate from that, which is doing the holding, right? And if we can really feel that connected to source energy, to quantum field, whatever that source of our energy is, if we can feel that connection, it's like being plugged into the outlet. It's on, we're powered on, and it's easy to stay lit up when we're connected, when we're powered on. And so what happens when we're blocked, and how do we unblock it? And the breath has just been beyond, like, the simplest, most powerful tool that I've found. And then you've studied it in such a deeper depth, and being able to talk about like the different techniques and ways to use it. But to me, I mean, again, if everybody knew this and everybody were practicing this, the world would be such a vastly different place. The way that we could actually show up for ourselves, show up for each other, and have kind of the resilience and the clarity to handle whatever challenges were the latest and greatest that life, was throwing at us, because life is happening.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So let's pivot from talking about spirituality then and talk about the energetic, because having money in the bank of any variety at a time like this is what we want. And so having the ability to make a bigger bank account so that we can fit more in it is really what we're talking about. It's like creating a container.
Yeah.
And that space that we're creating in our mind, body, spirit, whatever, that part of us that is purely non-physical, that does not have space-time or dimensional constraints, that isn't tied or tethered to this skin suit, this space suit that we're in, our meat suit. Yep. It's that part of us that is capable of all the extra. It's the part of us that cries when we hear a piece of music. It's the part of us that gets goosebumps at a movie. It's our spirit. It's that essence of us that goes on, that was before and will be after. And
the superhuman part of us.
That aspect, yeah. And Joe Dispenza talks about it. And I don't like referencing a lot of other people because I'm kind of trying to work on my own polemic around this. But there's a lot of work out there that people can find, and Joe Dispenza, on how we think specifically. Bruce Lipton, epigenetics, the biology of belief. How we believe about a thing is actually more important than the thing itself. That doesn't mean we're supposed to be positive at all times. And if you're not positive, you suck. It doesn't mean that. Because right now there's just so much bullshit right now, like spiritual bypassing going on, where people are like, yay, we got to reset and we got this. And I'm like, no, shut up. You don't, no, stop.
I don't know what's
Stop right now. Just sit in the suck. Just sit where you are and feel
the uncertainty.
Right. Yeah. It's just like, boom. It's just, we haven't even landed yet. We're just sort of, shaking it out. So be where you are. Don't feel the need to be overwhelmingly positive at all times, and let what's in you come out. And then that creation of container, this is the mechanism of breath work. By creating that space and getting stuff out, you end up with a bigger bank account.
Yes.
And it's empty.
Yes.
Because you got rid of all the stuff that was in there, maybe those old investments that weren't that wise. So now you can make a whole bunch of new deposits, and you can invest those deposits. And those deposits can be brought in the same way the old stuff was cleared out, with the breath.
Yes.
And so breath work is making a daily deposit in some kind of energetic or spiritual account or container that we need to use to draw from, to then distribute and invest into our friends, our loved ones, starting, I guess, right now with our own mental, physical health, because we're no good to anyone else. If I'm not mentally and physically sound, I'm no good to anybody.
And just so everyone on this knows, literally, I don't know how you're doing this, but every day at 6 o'clock, you're leading group breath work virtually for free. So every night at 6 o'clock, we can maybe, Sage, you can put the link in the group chat, and then we can share it too.
Awesome.
But that practice, having a daily breath practice, it's a different type of meditation. It's an active, my way that I would explain it, because I'm a big meditator and I have a pretty big, years and years and years of daily meditation practice. And breath work, my meditation practice involved breath work too. This particular type of breath work that you lead, it's very active. And so it is like cleaning house. It's allowing your body, your brain, your being to kind of clear out the old stuff and then fill it with the better, higher version of the energy of your being, right? Mm-hmm. So that's something I highly recommend. And luckily you're so generous with your time and all the stuff that you've shared. So that's something that I definitely recommend people just try and then commit to it. Like anything, any kind of practice, if you commit to a practice, you'll get better at it. And a lot of people I know who have started breathwork practices, it's pretty, I don't want to say it can be intense and it can be daunting because it'll bring up all the stuff. It's like cleaning out the closets. It doesn't necessarily seem good when you're in the middle of the cleaning out of the closet process. Everything starts to come out in the room. You're like, oh my God, why did I clean out this closet? This is a disaster. This is so much worse than it was. And so there is, I think, a messy middle in breath work that we want to love that too, and see it through. You don't want to half clean out the closet and then leave everything out in the room and then not get rid of the stuff and put it back in an orderly fashion kind of thing. So just to acknowledge that's part of the process of cleaning house, is that you're going to feel some of those feelings that you weren't able to really integrate when they first got deposited in that closet, right?
Yeah, it's really fascinating how we get started with a thing and then it gets messy and we're like, oh, this isn't working. It's not working for me.
It's
and
uncomfortable.
We quit.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it physically looks worse. You feel a little bit worse. That's also called a healing crisis. It happens in acupuncture. Anytime you treat more than the symptom, if you go to the root cause of any dis-ease, you bring up increased symptomology because you begin to actually correct the root of the problem.
Right.
And so things appear worse before they get better. Right. Having said that, you'll want to work, if you're going to do that kind of deep stuff, you'll want to work with somebody who's trained, who can walk you through the process. A lot of people want to try breath work, and they do, and they have a session or two. They may have a powerful experience that they don't know what to do with, and they're not sure what to do with that experience. I would encourage them to reach out to you or reach out to me, especially in this time of being online. Yeah. You're trying something at distance, and you're going to be trying it from the comfort of your own home, sure, but then when something happens, where are the people who got you to that place? So the platform I'm trying to build is one where, not trying, there's no effort. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about that in a second. I'm not trying, I'm actually building it. I'm just building it very, very simply. And right now it looks a lot like this. It looks like Zoom chats and a landing page that I spent 4 hours on this morning and isn't up yet.
Holla.
Yo! But
for all of us, it's like, how can we serve? And it's going to be messy. It's not going to be the most polished, perfect thing. And just show up and
that's it.
Be of service. And everybody has a way that they can be of service to others through this hard time.
I want everybody to have a place where they can go at least once a day. Now, I've got a few friends that I'm recruiting, and as this matures, there'll be maybe 2, 3, 4 times a day live, and then have archived of like sessions available from different types of breath worker, different styles of breath work, different convictions and training and experience, that people can find a male, a female, this type of voice, that type of voice, whatever kind of breath work you need, in hopefully a language that's remotely like yours, other than just English, around the world in different time zones.
Yeah, and I think the most important first step for everybody is just even being aware of the breath. Because most of the time we're not even aware of our awareness. We're not aware of what we're paying attention to. And our awareness gets sucked into some, monkey mind process. And we don't realize that we're stuck overthinking and going through a cycle that's actually making everything intensify. And as soon as we realize we're doing that, just to bring our attention back to the breath, being aware of our awareness is the first step. And the cool thing about any practice, like actually having a daily breath practice, is that it's going to help you with that mindfulness muscle, that you're going to be much more aware of your awareness. And so whether it's breath practice, whether it's meditation, whatever mindfulness practice someone is going to commit to, it has never been more important than for people to figure out some type of daily mindfulness practice so they can be more aware of their awareness, so they can be aware when they're going down a rabbit hole that is not of service and making everything much, much more stressful and increasing their cortisol levels, which then inhibits the immune system. So we can remember to bring our attention back to our breath. That's the first step.
Yep. I like to tell people to ask themselves multiple times throughout the day, how do I know I'm breathing? Yeah. How do I know? Like, how do you even know right now that you're breathing? And that'll bring about the question, am I breathing? And then the first question is, if I'm not breathing, to whom or what have I given the power to steal my breath? To whom or what idea, what person, place, thing, or idea did I just give the power to take my very lifeline away?
Yeah.
And then we go, oh,
yeah,
shit, I have this, I got this, I got this. I'm thinking about this one. I'm thinking about, now we've talked about awareness that raises it. What happens when you do check in, you find out you're kind of stuck
Or
and you're like,
scattered or wherever.
yeah, or you're in a loop. This is what's going to happen. This is my experience. And this is what I predict. People like rats in a cage or hamsters. We only have so many patterns before we get burned neural nets and neural grooves in. The kind of neural nets that we burn in right now, because some new behaviors are all going to be wired in. Right now, the very beginning of this thing is when we need to get out in front and begin to actually take charge of that brain evolution. Yeah, and begin to wire these things in now in a beneficial way. And I'm doing this myself. It was so tempting. The first couple of days I was exhausted. I got back from New York. I got everything squared away that I needed to make sure that my house was in order. And then I needed to sleep for a couple days. A couple days felt like I could just,
children.
Yeah, right. I got no kids. I thought I could just sleep for a week. Thanks. So for those of us who can sleep whenever we want, it's a challenge because you just want to lie in, and who's going to know, who's going to care, so for me, getting up early, forcing myself to exercise, and by forcing, I don't mean with the effort, I just mean doing it.
Yeah.
I mean actually doing it.
And then following through on the commitment, which is basic self-respect. You tell yourself you're going to do something and then you actually do it.
It's not pretty, but I did it. Right? Like, and I'm starting to do it. And today was the start of a whole other routine. Yeah. And so having accountability and breathing and bringing that stuff in.
Partners. We should all, we all have the opportunity to have accountability partners, because then we'll support each other. We'll have another buddy systems. I love buddy systems. Like if we all had buddies and buddy systems, but we can have accountability partners right now around establishing these habits that are going to help us really rise up and grow and get stronger through this period instead of going the wrong direction. And
breathwork's the way to wire that stuff in.
So 6 o'clock every day, we can breathe with you. And at that point, I want to open up for questions too. I think I don't know, do people have questions? Put in the chat if you want to talk and I'll unmute you. But yeah, is there anything else that you're thinking about that you want to share before it's at 12:44? So I want to.
No, just thanks for the conversation. And if anybody has any questions, they can reach out to me at sage@neumanta, PNEUMANTA, or at that'sit.com. So you can find me on the website. They can reach out to me through you. They can reach out to me via sage.breath on Instagram. And I'm here. I'm available if anyone has any questions.
And you're doing one-on-one breath sessions during this period?
I am, yeah. I am taking on a few limited one-on-one breath sessions for people who are interested in doing one-on-one work. And I'll be doing free group breathes every night, 6 to 7 p.m. with music. And the whole design around that is just a place to release. Wow. It's not going to be heavy, crazy, wild stuff. It's just a place to begin to breathe.
Unless you want to make it so. That's the thing about
you can do whatever you want. Yeah, you can ignore me. Do whatever you want. Awesome. Yeah, any questions out there? Thanks, Pam.
Oh my gosh, of course. Well, I think that's it, guys. I want to be cognizant of everybody's time, 45 minutes in, but reach out anytime. Seriously, the reason why I started Hacked was to share, right, and create community. And this is just a different way of doing it. So I'm open to suggestions. I'm open to partnering with anybody on anything of value. So any way that anyone thinks that I can be of service right now, I'm all in. I'm going to show up, and I know Sage feels the same way. And I know everybody on this call feels the same way, because we're each other's people. So we'll all keep in touch, and I'm really grateful. Yep. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. You got it.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, where can we access the link? All right, hold on. The link for Sage's. Sage, can you put in the group chat what you were? It might be easier for you than me.
Yep. 1 second.
And anyone's a first-time person, I want to know you. So Jess, whoever you are, wherever you are, we're friends now. So we're going to make lots of new friends through this period. That's
what was the link? What am I putting in there? I forget.
Your Zoom chat for your session every.
Let me actually get that. 1 second. I need to actually get that link.
I'll race you. Let's see who can get it faster.
Oh.
Drum roll. Read more.
Yeah, I don't actually have it. I will put in my website though.
Hold on, I can do it. Do
email.
one tap mobile. For some reason, your Zoom meeting has got like all these numbers. Oh.
It's because it's set up every day, and when I set it up every day, it sends the time every day.
Yeah,
I know.
massive. All right, so what I'll do, Marcia, I'll just email it to you. I'll forward it to you right now via email. That's easiest. And anyone else, reach out, pam@hackedfitness.com. And yeah, we'll do this every Wednesday at 12. Mwah. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks again.
Bye.